Hello all, welcome to the video lecture series for the subject compiler design. Now I am going to explain you all about the last parsing technique we have in bottom-up approach. Right. So here you can see that LALR parser is the last technique in bottom-up parser. It is very similar to the SLR parser. So LALR stands for look ahead. That is, any first value which is given in the grammar has to be identified and it has been added with the regular grammar expressions, so that we are going to check whether the first approach, a look ahead value, is also actually parsing based on the bottom up approach, right? So here it carries 5 steps to complete a parsing technique. Number 1, augmented grammar. Number 2, LR of one item computation. Previously it is called in SLR, that is LR of 0, but here it is LR of 1. I'll tell you what is that 1 stands for. And find an identical core element in the set, parsing table construction, phase validity. So I can say that all these 5 steps, which is actually stands with an best example LALR parsing technique can give. So here you can see the best example I have taken, and this example is also a common example we are seeing for both the parsing technique SLR and LALR parsing technique, so that you can able to identify what exactly the difference between LALR and SLR. Right. Now we are going to find the augmented grammar. You know very well what is the steps. Before that, I'm going to name all the row here. This is R1, this is R2, and this is R3. All these rows, the name has been given based on the approach which is going to be adopted in step number 4, that is parsing technique, right? So as of now, I am leaving it empty. So I'll explain you why these are when we are constructing a parsing table, right? So now step number 1 will move on to, that is step number 1 is finding augmented grammar. So here is a real grammar. The grammar has been taken, and finding an augmented grammar is the most important step. Right. Starting state is yes, so S dash tends to S. This is the augmented grammar. Remaining that is grammar, and whatever the production is after that, please take down and fill this step number 1. So C tends to small c, capital C, C tends to D. So whole process we can call it as augmented grammar. So this is the first step. It's very simple and also the most effective step. If you make any mistake in finding out this augmented grammar, then the whole technique will be in a very wrong way. Okay, so let me move on to step number 2. Now step number 2, as I already told you, what is LR of 1, which is actually differ from LR of 0. Here LR of 1 stands for look ahead value, right? So we are going to have a closure technique here. So I'm going to take the same thing. The previous step has been repeated here. S dash tends to S, S tends to capital C, C tends to small c, capital C, and C tends to small d. So I've taken the same step which is with the augmented grammar, that is the previous step number 1. So we are going to add a precedence value initially. So I'm adding all this dot in the beginning. As you all know that it will parse from left to right. So the dot has been called here, that is a precedence value. Now the LR of 0 is actually here, right? What is LR of 1 in the sense? We need to add, that is first of S dash, first of S. If you find first of S dash, so we have first of S is equal to first of C, first of C is equal to small c, and first of C is equal to small d, right? So we have 2 terminals here, that is small c, d, that is the 2 terminals we have, right? In addition, we are going to add a dollar for the starting state. This is adding dollar for the starting state. Wherever you find yes, you need to add dollar. Why we are adding this dollar for capital S alone? Because capital S is the starting state. This is the rule number 1. So what is this rule number stands for? This dollar is added. This is called as a look ahead value, that is called as LR of 1, which is exactly added only for starting symbol. Starting symbol is yes, so it is added here, as well as here. Now we have a terminal values, that is small c and small d. Wherever you have this capital C, you need to apply small c slash d, and here also small c slash d. So we are adding this first value for all the non-terminals here. So this is called as LR of 1. I hope you people understood. Now this is the iteration number 0. That is the difference we have between this SLR and LALR parser, right? After this, we are going to have the same procedure what we had in our previous parsing technique called SLR parser, right? Now I'm going to use this Goto function, Goto, and I'm going to I naught comma capital S. So as I already told you, whatever the value after this dot represents precedence. Whatever the value you have after this dot has to be parsed. That has to be called here, right? So that is the reason I'm going here. Now S dash tends to S dot. After that we have comma dollar. We are not going to do anything after this comma or else dollar. We are not moving this dot from after this S. Why? Because this is a look ahead value. It is not a regular terminal or a non-terminal grammar. So we are going to take this as usual. So this is a new iteration. So I am numbering it as iteration number 1. So let me take you to the next part, that is go to I naught comma. So we are moving here. Actually we did this. We are moving to this particular C. So it is capital C, right? So now we are going to take this S tends to capital C dot a capital C. The dot has been moved from here to here. So in this way. So after that, since the dot has been not in a complete state, so we are going to call all the remaining structure values for that. So here it stands for the lookahead value is dollar. Now you can check it. Now listen carefully. Since this part is not completed and it is started with a lookahead value called dollar, and all the remaining part has so to be constructed in the same lookahead value. That means we need to bring down this C tends to small c and C tends to D down. But here the lookahead value is different. But here you can check it. As I already told you, if any of this particular grammar, when you are moving this precedence value, it starts with any look ahead value that has to be entered for the next coming production rules. So though here you can see here the next coming production rule, I am going to take down and write it. C tends to small c capital C comma, instead of C slash D I am going to add dollar. This is rule number 2. Rule number 2 says that it starts with any look ahead value and it ends with the same look ahead value. So C tends to D comma dollar. So I hope this is a new iteration. So I am giving it as number as iteration number 2, right? So next step we are going to the same part, I naught comma small c. So here you can see that we completed this 1 and 2 has been completed. Now we are going to this third part. So now we need to do the same procedure as we did for the previous step. So the same procedure, C tends to, so small c dot a capital C. Now there is a rule number 3 applied here. As you all know that whenever a precedence value finds a terminal dot a non-terminal, then we need to use a rule number 3 called expand. The meaning of expand is it is going to repeat another time and whatever the grammar which is left out iteration number 2. So expand is in this way, capital C and C tends to D dot. So don't forget to add this particular lookahead value. You can see is C slash D, C slash D and C slash D. So this is most important, that is adding a lookahead value in each and every productions by using the Goto function. So this is a new iteration, so I am calling it as iteration number 3, right? After iteration number 3, so let me go to the function that is using this I naught comma small d. So we got this C tends to D dot comma C/D. So this is a new iteration. The dot has been moved here. The CD is also an lookup value. So I'm going to mention it as iteration number 4. Right. So again go to I1. I1 you can find it is null actually. So I am mentioning it as null. Why? Because I1 is already completed. Let me show you. Here you can see that this is I1. When I am going to this particular iteration, there is nothing to move here. So this state is called as, this iteration state we used to call it as null state, right? So I'm using the same procedure here, right? So what is the next thing? We need to go to I2 because I1 is empty. So we are going to I2. So let me show you where it is I2. So here it is. So we are going to move this particular capital C because precedence value in between here. So after precedence we have a capital C. So this is iteration number. We are using the Goto function now, right? Now go to I2 comma capital C, right? So what exactly we are getting? S tends to capital C dot comma dollar. This particular state looks like a new iteration, so I am mentioning it as iteration number 5. And whenever we are finding an iteration, please don't forget to check whether it is a repeated one or else it is a new one, right? So again I'm using this Goto function, go to I2 comma small c, right? So C tends to small c dot a capital C comma dollar. So here you can check it. This particular thing we have the the dot between capital C and small c. So I am using a rule number 2 called expand technique. So this is how it expand. This is small c capital C dollar. C tends to D comma dollar. So here whichever the lookup value it starts, it has to be ended in the same way. Now we are going to check whether it is a new state or else we have this state already. Let me show you the similar state. Right here you can check it. This iteration number 3, this is also in the same way, but the look ahead value is different. So we cannot call this particular function iteration as repeated state. It is a new state, right? Because it ends with a lookup value called dollar. So I'm going to call this as iteration number 6, right? So whenever the lookup value is not matching, even after this particular productions are all same, then also it is going to be considered as a new iteration because the lookup value is different, right? So let me go to the next part. Go to I2 comma small d, right? C tends to D dot comma dollar. So let us check whether we have completed the same thing. Yes, we have. So here you can check it. C tends to D dot small c slash D, and this particular D is ended with the lookup value is C slash D, but here you can check it, it is ending with dollar. So this is not similar, this is a new state. So I'm mentioning it as iteration number 7, right? So now I'm going to go to function, going to iteration number 3. Iteration 2 is completed, so I'm moving to iteration number T capital C. So here C tends to small c capital C dot comma C slash D. So this is going to be a end state and it is also a new state, so I'm mentioning it as iteration number 8. Right, in the similar way we are going, go to I3 comma small c. If you go to I3 comma small c, we are going to get the same values which is already there. C tends to small c capital C, rule number 2. So apply the same rule number 2 here. C tends to expanding C slash D, and C tends to dot comma C slash D. This is the repeated iteration, that is we have already found this iteration. The iteration number is 3. If it is repeated, I told you already, please don't mention it as a new iteration number. Since it is repeated already, we are going to mention it as a same iteration number. If it is new, then we can mention it as a new iteration number. Okay, now I3 has been come to an end. So let me take you to the iteration number 4. So go to iteration number 4. Iteration number 4, you can find it is as complete state, so I'm going to mention it as null, right? So let me take you to the next iteration, iteration number 5. Iteration number 5 is also in a complete state, so I'm mentioning it as null, right? So let me take you to the next iteration number, that is go to iteration number 6 comma capital C, right? So here we have a capital C has to be moved, so C tends to small c capital C dot comma dollar. So I think this is a new iteration. If you find the previous iterations, and in this particular construction there is no grammar, that is production has been ended, so this is going to be a iteration number 9, right? So again I am going to iteration number 6 comma small c. I think if you go here, it is going to be repeated in the same way. C tends to small c dot a capital C comma dollar, and C tends to small c capital C comma dollar, and C tends to D comma dollar. So I hope it has been repeated already. You can check it, and the repeated process is iteration number 6. I told you already, if it is repeated, please mention the same number which is already you got, right? So this is how this goto function has been working. So this is how this goto function step number 2 is actually working with.